Welcome, everyone, to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host.
And I'm Missy.
And we are following Willow. This is our weekly deep dive show into the show Willow. And today we will be covering Wildwood, Chapter 5. Okay, do we get our screams squeezed?
I was going to say, I promised you I wouldn't scream, but I'm so excited.
Do we get them out now? Like,
yes.
I've been on a high.
I know, me too.
It feels like actually for a week because like even episode 4, right? Like chapter 4.
Episode 4 kept me going for a while.
I was starting to get antsy on Tuesday and then we got the teaser for the episode.
Yep.
And then I got excited again. And then I've been like buzzing since then.
Yes.
How was this episode for you, Missy?
Oh my God. I have had too much fun. There were quite a few times watching this episode where I was bouncing up and down on my couch, squealing, punching this guy. I was just like, I was so excited about so many things. So yeah, it was pretty great, I have to say.
I do have a problem with staying up late to watch these.
Oh, I don't. I absolutely do not.
But I got up early. I had to see it first thing because I wanted to react to it before I saw any other reactions. And that was really, really important to me because sometimes you just run into reactions, even just feeling like, hey, I'm not trying to look in this particular, somebody posted something or whatever, right?
Always.
I really wanted to experience it myself. I didn't know what we were going to get other than I knew that they were going to be going into another forest. Why is there so many forests and underground spaces in the show? It's because this show cares about multiple people's journeys, and that's really required to transform people. And I'm really, really excited to get into all of the mythical fairy tale meta moments of this whole thing. We love them so much. The creators have been on fire this week. We've had interactions with John Bickerstaff. John Kasdan has been releasing more kind of thoughts on the show. And we've had lots of lovely interactions with Tony liking posts.
Yeah. And Amar as well.
And Amar, Amar's been a joy.
Yeah. So it's been really great. I always appreciate, interactions from cast and crew. And, we've even had some craftsmen who worked on the show who, have shared information with us. So it's been just really, really fun to enjoy this, not just as a growing fandom, but, along with the creators and show our appreciation because it is just great. And the show just keeps getting better, which is awesome.
It really is super satisfying. And I find that because the show is plugging directly into this very resonant part of my brain, I have been filled with a ton of creative energy. I've now done 2 fan cam edits. I've done 1.5 fan fictions. I've still been doing this insanely long podcast. Just thinking about it all the time because that's the show, right? So I want to encourage people to express their joy outwardly about the show. It's really, really important that we share our joy with others when it comes to this. So if you're feeling like you want to tweet about it, please do, because it really does need that, I think, oomph for people to get over whatever they have going on that they're like, I don't want to watch it yet.
Yeah. Well, I see a lot of people saying that they're going to wait. And on the one hand, I totally respect that. I have a very long list of things that I'd love to watch and I just don't have time for them all. So, sometimes I'm like, I'll get to it when I get to it. But this is only 8 episodes and season 2 isn't guaranteed. So I think the more people we can get watching it, the better. So please give it a try. It is well worth your time.
Yeah. And I mean, I assume most people that are.
Yeah. If you're listening to us, you've probably seen it. If you haven't, turn it off, go watch, and then come back. Okay.
No, but what I'm saying is that fan works, doing edits, talking about the show, enjoying the show, talking about the mythology of the show and the symbolism actually helps people go hey, maybe I should check it out. That's one of the reasons I do this podcast is to talk about it because I love it, but then it engages in people in conversation, and they turn it on and to be like, oh wait, yeah, this is exactly my thing.
Yeah, I haven't been quite as on fire as you, just for lack of time. But I have definitely, like I've already done the Powerpuff Girls, fan art, and then I did a big meta earlier this week all about mythical husbands in Willow. So yeah, I think
definitely you've been doing a lot, actually. Yeah, compared to
fun.
other stuff that we've done in the past, this is it really draws us in. So let's get into the episode and kind of our pre-show topics.
Yes.
Just a reminder, like, subscribe to keep up with the show and every episode that we drop. And make sure to interact with any of the places that it's posted, add comments, and because it helps people find the show, all of these things, raise it up in whatever platform you happen to be on. All right. Let's dig into your questions and comments. And these were either submitted via our comments form that's in the liner notes, or I grabbed actually one from YouTube. So we are paying attention kind of on all these different platforms and the places that the episode is, of course, posted. All right. Our first question, and I had to narrow it down a little bit, is from Sure with an exclamation mark. Do you think the sigils carved into Graydon's chest was put there to seal it in or kick out the entity that possessed him? Or was it done to put it in there in the first place? Could it have been a plan of his father's that backfired, possibly an attempt to create a harbinger? Otherwise, what are your theories and how it could be attached to him? All right, Missy, thoughts? This is like a little bit of speculation. Like, we don't...
Yeah.
In truth, we don't really have enough information yet to really like draw what this means or what could be going on. I have a feeling.
Yeah. We just don't have enough information. My gut says that he is on some level a victim of his father's greed and lust for power. But the question, I think, really relies on how much of the lore, the in-world lore, his father knows and is attempting to manipulate, which that's the part we don't know. So I don't know. It could be any of the above, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let me think about how to explain my very weird thoughts. Okay, first, we have a few things at play. We have Hellstar, which is from Cthulhu mythos. It is a great old one. And so the house itself has this connection to how John Kasdan is using as the dark side of Anduin, right? We also have the sigil, which specifically the staves that they're drawing on call to the center. There's something about the center of Graydon that actually has a circle around it. I think it would be quite interesting if something that his father did that is related to, say, the line of Hastur was that, maybe they're from the blood of the Six or they're followers of the Great Old One. And it was like a way his father tried to get that power somehow, and it somehow ended up in Graydon. And it's either to keep it in him or it was to protect him. And if something about that breaks, then he would be vulnerable again. There's a lot of like sins of the father in this that we've already seen thematically, in that his father has been willing to sacrifice him. Very very House of Atreus.
Yeah, exactly.
of him. And I just... It would indicate that there is an ongoing darkness that Graydon has to resolve somehow, that is part of him, whether he wants it or not. I don't know if that answered the question.
I think it's a good answer.
Yeah. All right. Loki Doki on Twitter said a lot of really interesting stuff about kind of the comparison between Ray and Luke, but really, comes down to, I'm wondering if maybe Willow is terrified of Alora not doing things by the books not simply because he's learned one way and is set in his ways, but because he thinks that if she steps out too far from the known boundaries of magic, she is at risk of corruption. What do you think of this?
So I think that we learned more about this in this episode because Willow revealed his greatest fear, which is that he will be revealed to be a hack. So ultimately, I think his fear of Alora doing things her own way is that it reveals that he's not a great sorcerer and he's not needed. So I think that's what's going on there.
Yeah, I also think that it's playing into the typical mentor trope of you have to overcome this and figure out your own way. And the mentor is going to be a threshold guardian standing in your way of learning your own path and your own direction. And that's going to teach Willow back that he has to learn his own way of doing things, because the show is called Willow. And that's really important for us to remember. Even though we're obsessed with all of the characters, the show is about Willow basically becoming a mage. That's what it's going to be about in the end of the show.
Right. So ultimately, this is going to be about what Alora and the rest of the characters teach Willow. What does he need to learn from them? So anyone who's focusing a lot on Willow training Alora is really kind of missing the whole point. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like, and we talked about this, I think, last episode, that mentors learn as much from their mentees. And I tweeted out, like, I wish I was a better drawer because I really want to see a picture of Willow babysitting 4 little children and like a Borman that's like a child but still taller than him, and like him going crazy. Like that's what's going on in this. But he's got them all on like those child leashes. And like that's what's going on. But he also, like, that's so important that the heroes teach the mentors so that the crone in his hermity phase can leave that phase, can grow and become the mage that he has always been and was foretold in the movie Willow. Yeah. He's just not there yet. That's the important part.
I'm so excited though. Can you imagine what he'll do when he's a mage? It'll be awesome.
Yeah, it's so good. All right. Next one?
Yep. All right. This is from Lily. And was this one also from YouTube?
Yeah, this one was on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. So, and it was a really excellent, longer comment. We're going to focus in on one piece of information that Lily provided, which was the myth of Brunhilde, cursed to sleep by Odin until her armor is broken and removed from her body, has been cited as a possible source of inspiration for the Sleeping Beauty tale. The fact that her lineage is linked to magical armor only adds to the obvious parallels that are being drawn. Sleeping Beauty has also been connected to Pursed Forest, where the heroine is cursed to sleep by the goddess Themis, which works well with the dark goddess aspect you were speaking of. So this is awesome. It's really great information. I've heard a few people comment about the relationship between Brunhilde and Sleeping Beauty. Alora sounds like Aurora, is also a goddess of light like Aurora. So, this is something I've heard few people comment on. But the fact about the armor needing to be broken and removed from her body is great because obviously that aligns to Willow's vision of Alora and the fact that we're looking for the Chimerian cuirass. So this is all really awesome. It's something that we're tracking right now. We haven't really seen yet how it's going to play out, but I think it's very obviously deliberate on the part of the creators, and that's awesome. So thank you for this.
And Sleeping Beauty is, of course, all metaphor for a death and rebirth situation, which if Alora dies, she would have to be reborn somehow.
Yeah. Sleeping Princess tales are about coming into knowledge. The waking and the rebirth is the waking to new knowledge and to new understanding.
Exactly. All right, let's get into our mythic themes and inspirations. The first one I want to actually talk about is the Lap of the Goddess. What are you talking about, Marie Claire? Okay, let's go into what exactly the Wildwood is. The name of the episode, where they are, the location that they're at. The Lap of the Goddess is a phase in life. It is a phase in a hero's journey, a heroine's journey, an adventurer's journey, where they actually find themselves sort of at a place of peace. It's an oasis. It could be very domestically driven, like a home. You come home in the middle of your journey. And as I like to call it, the beach episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yes.
Okay, why is this important? So the Lap of the Goddess is a place by which you are cared for and restored. This is the ultimate self-care episode. It is amazing in that way. Goddesses can be representative in story as any woman, essentially. I haven't seen that I can think of a successful male masculine character goddess figure, but I'm sure it could happen, probably.
Yeah.
But at least in these episodes, we actually have two. Rest comes from the word restar, which is to remain in one place. Rest invites us to gaze inward, to tend to our exhaustion, to let go of directionality, achievement, ambition, struggle. We can feel the desire for stillness to call us home. There's a certain amount of domesticity in the Wildwood. It ends up becoming a version of domestic bliss. The landscape calls us to rest in a mindful mode and receive the gift of life, creative force, and to allow that to move through us while we rest in the lap of the great Mother Earth. So there's two goddesses. There's Scorpia, who represents a goddess in this episode, as well as Alora. And ever since Graydon rested in the lap of a goddess previous episode, he's been wanting to get back. So here's where we are. So the Wildwood is this concept of absolute rest. And I do want to call out that except for a few times within long format storytelling in Star Wars, and like as an example, when Mando, Din Djarin, goes to the planet and sees Omera and sees that like fishing village, that's the lap of the goddess in Star Wars. It is extremely rare and we are not used to seeing it. It is super femme focused and is just something that we don't actually see a lot of in Star Wars. So like when I call it out here, I'm like, hey, this is where we're at. It might feel super unfamiliar to people.
Right. And I suspect that there will be people who feel that not much happened this episode because there really wasn't a lot of action. And that's by design, because to your point, we're resting and that's what they're doing. And also I love, you commenting how domestic it is, because that is repeated over and over and over. First you have, Graydon talking about how like, well, the Wildwood is seductive. You never want to leave.
Yeah.
And then I love Borman's comment about next thing you know, you're officiating weddings and dog sitting for casual acquaintances. Like
even the brownies are domesticated.
Yeah, I was about to say, and the brownies too. Like he says, he talks about soul crushing domesticity, although we'll talk about this later. That's a lie. He doesn't really feel that way.
He doesn't want to leave it.
He doesn't.
And it's the place. And so this is okay. Why does the lap of the goddess matter? It's the reason you go on your adventures to solve problems so you can get back to it. And literally we hear that multiple times in this episode too. So we hear from Borman, I could come back.
Yep.
We hear from Jade and Kit talking about their future together. Like, once this adventure is done, we could come back here. Like, this is the reason you fight in your Star War. This is the reason you're like, I want to be able to come back to peace. Even in the words that Rule uses to say, if you don't die, you might truly live.
Yes.
Get a chance to truly live. This is what they're talking about, that you get to have your dances, you get to have your love, you get to have your joy. This episode is joy.
And in the main saga, the closest that we get to this. So I hear you about Mando, but the closest we get to this in the main
Ewok
saga
village.
is Endor. Yes, it's Ewok village, which I'm gonna say several times as we go through this. This feels very Ewok village the whole way through. I'm like, oh, we're in the Ewok village. Oh, we're still in the Ewok village. Oh, look, everything's exactly like that.
And it hits it right at the end with like the victory party and everything like that.
Exactly.
And that's what you win. You get to party with the people that you love and in a beautiful place, and it gets to be like that is, oh, I love this so much.
Yeah. You don't bury weapons in a desert, you mean?
Not that I've heard. I don't know.
Sorry,
it's a choice.
I had to.
All right. Any other thoughts on the lap of the goddess?
No, but I love it. I think it's incredibly cool that, again, it feels so unusual, this episode, but it's so nice.
But it's actually extremely mythic. So I love it. and in service of the story, it is effectively the calm before the storm.
Yeah, it sets us up so well for, we have 3 episodes left?
Yep.
So yeah, it sets us up really well for that.
All right, let's talk about the archetype of shapeshifters.
Yeah.
All right. I really wanted to talk about this one because it's been on my mind for a while with sort of some of the transformations that happened in episode 4, as well as some of the pieces that present themselves inside of the episode. And it's literally across the board everywhere. So let me talk about the archetype of shapeshifter from a Jungian archetype perspective to start. It is one of the foundational things we need as people to transform ourselves when we have no scaffolding to do it under normal circumstances. So essentially, the archetype of shapeshifter is a character or a person that transforms in front of us. In narrative, often they take the form of vampires, werewolves, witches. Sometimes emotionally, they're very present in romances. We have them a lot in enemies to lovers because the enemy transforms into a lover. They are a shapeshifter fundamentally. It brings sort of a level of catalyst for action, and it helps us understand that transformations can happen because we're dealing with very old parts of our brains and very new parts of our brains that have a lot of information running through our brains all at the same time. These shapeshifters, or people that can change and transform, allow us to see that this is possible. The examples in this episode are everywhere. So we have the Dag, who is the harpy character. She changes between a bird to a creature walking around. We have Scorpia, we have Bone Reavers, we have Jade, we have Graydon, we have Willow. We have the Wildwood itself in transforming the perils to something else, domestic life. We have all of these different aspects. And what it does effectively is shows us that, like the butterfly, you can change from a egg to a caterpillar to a chrysalis to a butterfly. You can shapeshift yourself, or even turn back your evolutionary clock, your biological clock, to an ancient biological version of yourself if you need it. And it's actually considered to be fundamental in introducing adaptability and flexibility to create wholeness and integration. Cool.
That's so cool.
So it's everywhere in this episode. What did you think of that when I brought it up?
I mean, I actually didn't view it that way. So I'm really glad that you framed it like that because as with many things, as soon as you point it out, then I can't unsee it, right? So it really is everywhere. So I think it's incredibly cool. I love it. And most concepts, once they're introduced in this show, then continue to reappear in later episodes. So I'm looking forward to continuing to keep an eye out for that after this episode.
it will be quite cool to see how much shape-shifting we have going forward. Because it was a bit like episode 4, right? We had a full shape-shifting situation where it was introduced, the possibility of changing shape.
Yep.
But we really hadn't had much before that. And so I'm excited to see if we get more shapeshifters.
Especially if eventually I think we're going to get to the whole all is not what it seems. I think we're headed that direction with certain characters, probably some characters that are going to be introduced. So I am looking forward to seeing that play out.
Exactly. All right, let's go on to the next one, which is The Tale of the Skeleton Woman and the Lover's Journey.
Yes. All right. So this one comes from, once again, Women Who Run with the Wolves, Clarissa Pinkola Esses. And I'm not going to go through the whole story, but I do recommend going and checking it out if you can. You should be able to find a short version of it somewhere, even if you can't read the whole book right now. Since I've been reading the book for like 3 years and I'm not done with it yet. So it's
I read and discussed
hefty.
a version on my Patreon.
Yes, that's cool. So exactly. So, but that said, what I wanted to call out here is that she gives the steps of what I'm calling a lover's journey in terms of how a person integrates the life cycle into their romances, or how a couple integrates this into their romances. And there are 7 stages or steps of this journey. And I'm going to just briefly outline them and then encourage everyone to keep an eye out for them as we go through the episode, and we will call them out, of course. And there are at least three romances in this episode, and all of them align to this to some extent. So the first stage is finding treasure, usually accidentally. They sort of stumble on it. The treasure, of course, is usually the lover. It's typically unknown that this person is the treasure that they will eventually be recognized as. The second stage is the chase or the hunt. In this case, you're often going to see a hunter-huntress motif happening. This is really cool because it usually reverses at some point. The hunter becomes the hunted, which is very cool. Then we have untangling the skeleton. And what this means is that sort of the hunter who became the hunted, they've now dragged home this lover and they don't know what to do with them. And they're all tangled up. And so they're sort of just sorting out, who is this person? What, can I kind of help them sort through who they are and how I relate to them? So that's untangling. And then there is the sleep of trust, which is the moment at which they let their guard down and say, all right, I don't know this person yet, but I'm going to trust them to some extent. Then we have the giving of the tear, which is an offering of vulnerability of some kind. And then my favorite stage of all, which is the heart song or drum. And this is literally in the story, the character, she takes his heart out of his chest. She beats it like a drum and she sings flesh onto her bones and makes herself into sort of his dream lover. And it's beautiful. So the idea is the heart song here is what ultimately creates that bond. And then last, of course, we have also a musically related step, which is dance of body and soul. And this is where sort of a dance of joy, and typically it means full consummation of the relationship.
You're talking about sex.
I am talking about sex. Let them bang, okay? Yes. But that is really, so those are the stages. Again, all of the couples that we have in this episode show, if not all of the steps, at least, a good number of them are very, very identifiable. So we're going to call them out as we go through. Very exciting.
I love the Skeleton Woman. It's one of the...
So good.
We actually have seen it a fair amount in story. Missy and I, we've talked about maybe doing a specialty episode on what the fiction about Skeleton Woman and how it presents in pop culture, because we have these very spiritually dead women characters that are out there that are like trying to compete under patriarchy or trying to find their way in patriarchy. And what they end up finding is that a love of self and love of their chosen mate ends up, and the love that mate gives them revitalizes them. And it's about finding your true self through love of yourself and others. It's really glorious. I don't know. It's really great.
I love it. It's wonderful. And I encourage everyone to dive into it because it is really an amazing story. And you'll start seeing it everywhere the way that Marie Claire and I do.
And then you'll be like, oh, that's Skeleton Woman. Yeah. People will be like, what are you talking about? All right. Our last mythic parallel topic that we want to talk about, and I'm going to be ever so brief because I could go on and on about this topic, but I do want to call it out as something that we are watching from a mythical perspective because it's starting to align to it. And both Missy and I, when we get vibes and they align, like I literally tweeted this out and you were like, no way.
Yeah, so I was going to say that.
When we both kind of think about something in the same way, it is really important to bring up because we're both like resonating with it on a certain level, right? So, all right, let's talk about Endymion, which is a Greek original mythos about a prince or a shepherd or an astronomer who fell in love with the moon and the moon fell in love with him back. Why does this sound familiar, Marie Claire? What could this possibly be? Oh, it's Sailor Moon. It is the mythos behind the glorious anime and manga, Sailor Moon. Endymion is the prince in the original Japanese version. That's his name. She calls it out. It's not Darien. Darien was the translated version. And the princess that lived on the moon was Selene, the goddess of the moon. And he falls in love with her, and then they both die, and she is reborn, and he is reborn, and they don't know each other, and then they end up becoming rulers later on. Okay, how does this relate to the story that we have in front of us? Well, it actually ties from like an archetype perspective. So Selene being the moon, Alora being magic. She is magic itself. She's been called out as that. And Graydon being a lover of magic.
Yep.
A studier of magic. Somebody who understands it in a fundamental way. It's such an interesting tie. Etymologically, Endymion actually is related to sleep, and Selene is related to light in the darkness. So I love it so much.
In conclusion, Grey Laura endgame.
Grey Laura, yes. I've got that meme with the guy in front of the whiteboard. In conclusion, they're meant for each other. There's actually a John Keats poem where he covers this, and they fall in love. They go on adventures. She ends up going to the underworld. He follows her. She ends up kind of they break up. He's like, I can't handle being in a relationship with a goddess. But she ends up taking on the guise of a mortal. He falls in love with that mortal. She reveals herself to be the goddess after a while. In the middle of that, he actually goes to the bottom of the sea and wakes up a great old god. So that happened. And I had a slight fear when I read that Graydon's gonna wake up the great old one.
Ooh.
Because of the whisper in his dad's ear. Or with his dad. If this is what they're pulling on, one fear.
One fear. Yeah.
But cool. Cool.
We'll see. That's so cool. Ooh, I gotta noodle on this for a while because that's very interesting.
It's awesome. It gives us lots of things to chew on and to think about. So if we start seeing more of this, we will definitely call it out. All right. You ready to get into the episode?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. They start out the episode by running from the gales to rock music.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm not going to go too much into that. I'm just going to say, listen, I made my peace with it last episode because I really did like the Black Hole Sun cover. and the way that it was used. I was a little confused when we started with it instead of ended with it.
And then it was everywhere around the episode, but I liked it.
Everywhere except during the credits. And I was like, wait, I spent all this time sort of like getting accustomed to it in the credits, and then it's not in the credits. I was so confused. But yeah, it was fine. Like, whatever. It was fun.
There was great moments with Borman and Willow, and like using the flamethrower against the dag, and Kit and Jade being chased by the big guy.
Scourge. Yeah, Scourge. And it started, I want to note, with two of our three couples together. It started with Graydon and Alora running together. It started with Kit and Jade running together. So it was important because one of the things I really liked about this episode is that it was not shy. It was not coy. It gave you everything right up front in your face, which I really appreciated when it came to the romance. Like, there was just no ambiguity.
They said things out loud, so there was no ambiguity that, many seconds of kissing equals love and romance.
Right. Exactly. So that was really, really good.
Yeah. Alora and Graydon's kind of always in her orbit now.
Yes, very much so. Another thing I want to note really, really quickly is it's a minor detail, but I think it's important. Remember what I said about looking for hunter-huntress motifs. While Kit and Jade are running, Kit drops her bow. She does not pick it back up.
Yeah.
So
that was neat.
Just saying.
I was like, that's interesting. I didn't have any thoughts on it. But yes, that does align with the lover's journey that we talked about. They are warned about the Wildwood. Borman is, of course, very hesitant. And Graydon's like, I've read about this. What a freaking nerd. I did not expect that we would get literally a nerdy library kid.
Yes. Okay, so in the How to Train Your Dragon series, why am I forgetting his name? Like the character that just knows all the stats on all the dragons all the time. That's how I think of Graydon. He's that guy.
It's like,
he's so funny.
What about the perils of the Wildwood? Yeah.
I'm really worried about the perils.
He's very afraid of death. Isn't that interesting? Doesn't that make you think like maybe his soul has been sold to some sort of devil?
Or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
In the preview for the next episode, he also says he's really afraid of death.
Does he really? Because I remember him saying that in like, I don't know, episodes 1 or 2.
He is very afraid of death. He
repeats it a lot.
It's a motif. Graydon is afraid of death.
And you know what that means, right? That means that growth for him will be reaching a point where he's willing to risk death and probably will have some form of death. Oh.
Yeah. Sorry.
I hate it.
Sorry. No. I needed to call it out. We got to get used to this concept. Sorry.
No.
There's something in the air, the trees, the water. It makes you never want to leave. Lose your will to do anything. What an interesting way to put that. But it doesn't matter. They are chased in. I loved this moment just from a cinematography perspective. Them going into this forest, which appears to be a dark forest from the outside, but is certainly not.
No. And you can tell immediately just because of the lighting and the way it's shot, but even just the way they react.
Magical.
They all suddenly are relaxing and sitting down and chatting and eating, and like it's like all of a sudden
it's seductive. It lures you in with its sights and sounds.
And it's got sparkles and
butterflies and sparkles.
I know.
It's like
okay, and
did I design this place? It's got moss. Like is
and can I just say, and I know this is gonna sound so stupid, but like the fact that it's all sparkly and everyone talks about how, makes you never want to leave. And then later on in the episode, everyone's extremely horny. I just want to say, I was like, it's basically a sex pollen episode.
Yes.
It is. Let's be honest.
We have this glorious sparkly things in the air that sometimes you can see the butterflies and sometimes you can't. So they're kind of magical in that way. And we see the return of the orange butterfly that was first present on the barrier when Alora left. Okay. So important because butterflies tie to spiritual growth, and transformation is at hand for them. And I also think that these butterflies being orange are connected to Alora's growth as goddess.
And also it alights on her hand. She's holding it. It sort of goes back to her like grasping her power.
Exactly. And it connects to the orange in her hair too. They're the same color.
Yes.
So good. Also, and the shapeshifter aspect. These are shapeshifters as well. They have transformed into their ultimate form. Thus, transformation is able to happen for all. Almost immediately, we have the Jade and Kit conversation, which sets us as where we need to transform from, which is the Bone Reavers that killed my family, fled into the Wildwood. Maybe they're still here. And we have Willow and Alora sitting down and giving us some mythos about Shalindria's wand and the world.
She's eating while they're talking, which is important because, again, she's following her instincts. She's taking in knowledge, but is it Willow's knowledge or is it her own knowledge?
It's probably her own food.
Exactly.
So Shalindria's wand is a splinter from the great tree at the center of all things. It's very Yggdrasil-like. Yggdrasil being the world tree that connects all of the worlds in Norse mythology.
I thought of that immediately, but I couldn't write it in my notes because I don't know how to spell it. So I was like, Marie Claire will know.
It's with a Y. Y and two G's.
I know. Yeah.
I also think it's kind of interesting that it's a splinter from the great tree and Willow is a tree.
Ah, nice.
There's something there on the edge of my subconscious that I haven't grasped at, but there's a reason that they're doing this to connect those two in such a short period, because we need to see Willow become a mage, right? As we talked about. You need to learn the 4 pillars of magic. And I love how Alora is very dismissive of Willow's, like, this is how we're doing this. And it's kind of one of those situations where, like, Willow almost comes off as like a substitute teacher that doesn't really know what he's talking about. I love him, but she's like, you know, we did the Eckleberry bush and I was told it was beautiful, and then I did the salve and cured Graydon, probably.
Maybe. Yeah, exactly.
I just need to ace concentration and divination. And I like how she keeps on bringing up, like, have you had visions of me?
Well, I really liked this because even before watching the episode, I kept thinking, because there were things I had taken notes of in earlier episodes where I was like, man, I wonder if they're using that as a framework for the entire season. And they absolutely are. Yeah. And so the first time he mentioned the 4 pillars, I wrote them down and I was like, oh, so we're going to see, her master each of these. And to her point, she has mastered charms, the berry bush, potions, the salve, and the purgation. Yeah. And so now she does just need concentration and divination. Obviously, we're putting off divination because it's scary for Willow. So we're focused on concentration. Arguably, she does make progress with concentration in this episode, particularly because she can control elemental forces. And there's the time that she sort of like explodes the
gate,
the gate. Yeah. So,
and she also stirs. She cooks with Shalindria's wand. So she's kind of already got that down.
Exactly.
And it was more in her elements.
Yes, I think we'll see more of it because I think we're going to see her do these other things that he talked about, like specifically transforming people was one that he mentioned. And so that is one that we will see at some point.
Are we going to get a transformed troll?
That would be cool. That would be really cool.
Oh, so good. And I love how she just stares at him and she scrunches her little face up. Yes! Oh, she's so adorable. She's like, I'm using my mind to remove that stick from your butt to let me use the wand.
The two of them have the best just on-screen relationship. It is so fun to watch. It's a great dynamic. I feel watching it like they just got along very well and they had a lot of fun working together because they're really good scenes. I just get such a kick out of it. And
over her shoulder is Graydon.
Oh, he's so pouty.
Playing with his dagger alone. Flipping it in his hand. looking on, desirous, and Borman approaches. Got the ghoulies, huh? Like being haunted. Oh my gosh. I love this scene so much because I was like, are they going to bring it up? Is he going to ignore it? And immediately.
It's literally the first thing that comes up. It's like, yeah, and that was when I knew. That was when I knew this episode was going to be fun because they didn't shy away from it. They didn't treat it as
that didn't happen.
Or as something subtle or something you have to guess at. It was just like, no, Borman walks up, calls Graydon out, and then it is the topic of conversation for him for the remainder of the episode. And everyone knows. And that's my favorite thing about it. Everyone knows. Everyone. This is not a mystery at all.
Absolutely not. I love how Borman describes it. Little bugs buzzing around your head, telling you to steal flowers, pass gas quietly, if at all. Make a fool of yourself in front of a certain fair-haired, doe-eyed chosen one.
Oh my God, it was amazing.
Who maybe
that whole
thinks
line.
Of you as just a friend.
No, I think he says
more than a
thinks
friend,
of you as more than a friend. Yeah,
more than
that's
a friend.
Why it's fun.
Ooh.
Yeah, so he's calling out not just Graydon, but also potentially Alora, which is so great. It just makes me so happy. Also, he just the little nose boop he does to him.
Yeah,
so
Booby.
Buddy, come on.
Like it's very like Big Brother.
Yes, it is.
Like Graydon, Bubby.
Yeah, which is, and it's about how he sees himself because he sees himself as this big brother and mentor and much wiser and older and everything. But as we see later, of course, and as we already know from other episodes, it is very much a projection because of the fact that he's still running from his own shadow. So he's always trying to sort of, put himself out there as this knowledgeable and mature older man, but he doesn't know what he's doing.
Secret knowledge. His secret knowledge that Graydon's like, wait a second. Yeah. Thraxis relaxes Borman. Has the ability to evoke passion in women.
Yep.
So what do you think he was going to say before he was so rudely interrupted? No, wait, first he was interrupted when he's like, Thraxis relaxes Borman. But it was Borman said by Kit, who said, Borman, you cheddar-headed goob. I love her so much. Like, the start of the show, she's like so frustrating. Actually, some of the characters are kind of all just differently frustrating. They're all babies. And then it's like, but they've grown on you, and Kit has grown so much.
She's such a great character. And I'm excited to call out some of her moments in this episode because it's so good. Not just
Ruby Cruz is acting the hell out of this.
Yes, her performance in this episode is amazing. It's so good. It made me just love her so very, very much.
And Graydon's like, wait, finish that sentence. As Borman's like super distracted by the skull and thus the, of course, Bone Reaver's appearance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Bones. We've talked about this many a time, but it bears repeating. Bones. This is where the old instinctual wisdom is held. So that is how you know the fact that we are going to find the Bone Reavers and that the bones are buried in the middle of this mystical forest, a wildwood no less. So the wild nature, the wild knowledge is all here.
Clarissa Piccola Estes, the wild woman archetype, all of this stuff. So bones carry the ancient wisdom that is in our bones that we can learn from by listening to our instincts. And the instincts are all off in this episode to start, and they realign by the end, which is cool.
And this is how you know that even before we get the truth plums, that we will be getting to the truth for all of these characters. We are getting down to the core, the realities. We are not, we're stripping everything away until the only thing that's left is the truth, the bones.
I think it's important that I call out that we didn't really go into Maiden and Mage at the start because we didn't really have a lot to say because everyone hasn't changed archetypes. But that doesn't mean that almost everybody doesn't have some sort of version of a life, death, life thing happening in the lap of the goddess. They all have sort of micro transformations. Some are bigger than others, and we'll call them out as they happen. But the bones being the thing that, like you talked about in The Lover's Journey, are sung to, is important, because we have to remember the past to be able to move forward into the future and to recollect the different aspects of ourselves as part of integration.
Right. And the singing to the bones puts flesh on the bones. It's what continues the cycle. It creates life from death. So it's just really important that, the bones are here. And once the drum starts later, and the music starts and the dance starts,
they are revitalized.
Yes.
In the lap
rebirth
of the goddess, there's multiple layers of symbolism happening that say all the same thing, which is wild.
So cool.
So cool. So the Bone Reavers capture them and they take them to their camp, which is kind of nestled in this like moss covered, gorgeous sort of gully.
Yeah.
I guess.
But then they're crossing over that bridge, and I'm sitting here going, yep, we're on Endor again. Welcome to the Ewok village. We are here. I almost expected to see somebody like dangling from a stick the way that Han and Luke were.
Like they're carried on sticks, like they're going to eat them. Although they did threaten to make them into skull stew, I think.
Like boiled. No, they were going to boil them down and use their skulls as masks, I think, or something like that.
Just like very Endor. Like, and
yes.
Oh, so good. We were introduced to Lori Toth, who, of course, Borman is familiar with. He's wearing a skull on his face. He's a very big man and very imposing and threatening. But of course, Borman is poking at him. Thrax pokes at him.
Yep.
And out comes the goddess of the hour, Scorpia.
I love her so much. Ugh, she's great.
She starts out, "You don't look dead." Oh, so good. They bring up the dread mines of Skellen that's run by trolls. That's where Draxus Relaxus Borman, his full name, had disappeared into. Okay, Skellen. It's such a good name.
Yeah.
It's skeleton mines.
Of course. It's great. Well, and everything about this whole sequence, they just beat you over the head with it repeatedly. Not only are they walking past all of these like skulls and bones and everything, but Toth has on him, his armor is also a rib cage.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And things like that. And so, and then obviously her coming out and say, her name, Scorpia, and then sort of the scorpion mark on her forehead. Yeah. Scorpions have an exoskeleton. So it's like, it's just repeating over and over and over again. They're really hammering it home here. And then, skeleton mines. You're just like, wow, okay.
Repeat. So repeated motifs and symbols means we need to pay attention to them, right?
Yep.
It's really important. They're trying to hammer something home to us.
Mm-hmm.
What are they saying? Okay, you come in dead and you will leave alive.
Yep. Yes. and this is where, they have been brought back. So this is, if we go back to our journey that we were talking about, we have, finding treasure. What's the treasure we've found that we're not aware of, or the accidental treasure we found? Oh, it's the lovers. It's one another, but we haven't acknowledged it yet. None of the lovers are acknowledging that they have found a treasure in the other. And so now they've been hunted and dragged back.
Yeah.
And now we are going to get to the untangling stage, which is going to go on for some time in the episode.
And it ties to shapeshifting. It ties to a bunch of the other things that are happening symbolically in the episode. Kit introduces herself as her full, like, I'm the daughter of Queen Sorshan. Well, it's just like, oh my God. And Scorpia introduces herself as her sublime eminence, Mistress Magnificus, Venomous Scorpia. So she is a goddess. She has an eminence, Mistress Magnifica. in this gully, in this situation, she is the person that Jade needs to meet, that Borman needs to meet to help them on their transformations.
Mm-hmm. And I want to call out also the fact that Kit refers again to her mother. That's how you know that she's still in her maiden phase, because of the fact that she's trying to use Sorsha's name
to protect
in
her.
order, yes, rather than, again, sort of breaking away. And this is important because of the fact that it's going to continue to present an obstacle to her and Jade, because even though she's, personally making a lot of progress and she's maturing in her relationship with Jade, if she can't defy her mother and stand against her mother in a mature way, not in a I'm just going to run away in the middle of the night way, the way she did in episode 1, but actually like in a mature way say, no, I'm not going to do that, then
no, I'm not going to marry Graydon for the sake of the kingdom. That's her big defiance thing. That
she has to be able to do that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I do want to say that Alora is the goddess for Kit. That's really important. And I already talked at the start of the episode that the goddess is different people in this situation, but this is her domain. And Scorpia, and it shows by the ease of use that Alora basically gets out of all situations and controls everything on her own. So we'll get to that as well. She says, lock the Nelwyn and the pretty fella down in the burrow.
No, she called her the pretty fella.
Graydon is pretty.
So pretty.
I love you so much. You're so pretty. And Kit and Alora are locked together, and then Jade is there for fun. Interesting.
And I like, because this is one of my favorite tropes in any romance, but I really love when partner is in danger and the other one absolutely loses their mind. And poor Kit is absolutely cannot function. She's so worried about Jade. And it's so important because, again, she's always projected all this bravado out there. And so seeing her just be, devastated at the thought of what's happening to Jade is really, really important. And I think is what really also drives her to humble herself the way she needs to in this episode.
She absolutely needed to humble herself.
Yeah, well, the last few episodes have been very humbling for her. She just keeps going. And now it's funny because what we see for her has been this descent. And of course, now we know, since she's going to the mines, that she's going to descend further.
And hopefully it forces a rebirth, right? Like that. It will. That's what we're hoping. Borman and Scorpia she goes into the tent, and we have this like incredibly sexy interrogation sequence that they go into like all of this background on, and like 80 moons. That's a long time.
Yeah.
That's a long time. It's been many, many years since he left. I mean, obviously if she was familiar with Mad Mardigan. Yeah, it's been a long time. I thought you were dead. I wept. She was allowed to weep. Oh, we have the Graydon and Willow are trapped down in the burrow. I just want to play this quote from Graydon's and Willow's conversation.
Do you think that she's ignoring me a little? You tried to exile her into another dimension. In my experience, ladies tend to be a little less trusting after that sort of thing.
Right, but I'm not that guy. I was just briefly possessed by that guy, which is unfortunate, because I feel like we had a connection.
Whoa. Hold it right there, Graydon. She is Elora Danan, Empress of the Nine Realms, destined to save the world. She doesn't have time to connect with you or anyone else.
So you're saying saving the world and having a relationship are mutually exclusive?
You gotta find a balance between personal and professional.
Exactly.
What am I saying? No, I mean, yes. You've got to stop thinking about her in that way.
Well, what if I can't, Willow?
Well, you have to.
Okay, what is going on, Missy?
I don't know. They've been listening.
Like, I have had this conversation, how there's like this thought that you have to sacrifice your desire to be loved as somebody who has a great deal of responsibility in the world. Like, I don't even know what to say. Have they really been paying attention to us? Do you feel perceived?
It could be. It could just be. The other possibility is that, okay, so I think it's important to back up briefly because not all the listeners will be as familiar with the American monomyth, which I know you have covered quite a bit in the past, but it really is this monomyth, which is exactly what you're talking about, which is that the hero must sacrifice their own desires in order to save the day, which is not something that is true of other monomyths, and particularly Campbell's monomyth. And so that's something that everyone needs to know. But I don't think that we're alone in our frustration with it. So yes, maybe they're listening, but maybe also we're not the only ones who feel this way and who have been really disappointed by how consistently this self-immolation is encouraged in our stories, when in fact the opposite is true. And what you want is transcendence on the part of not just the hero, but the missing piece of them that is their partner.
Their partner, yeah. It's also really fascinating to see this because in the heroine's journey, it's always called out when a heroine sacrifices her desires for, you know, the things that she desires as a woman, sexuality, family, interpersonal relationships. She feels like she needs to sacrifice those things to exist in the man's world and in the patriarchy. But it's not coming from that perspective in this story because Alora doesn't actually see that that's even a requirement. It's actually coming from the concerns of men that feel like she needs to sacrifice those things for the responsibility that she has. It's just such an interesting and different frame. And we have Graydon, of course, following up with saying, well, you know, what if I can't stop thinking about her? What do I do then?
Yep.
All right. We cut back to Kit and Alora in their cage, and Kit is losing her mind, as you said before.
Yeah, no, she really is. She can't deal. And I want to go back to something that you talk about really frequently, that this is a belly of the whale moment for Kit. They are behind a set of massive teeth. They have been eaten.
Yep.
They're literally inside the belly of this creature. I believe that Scorpia called it the Rattler.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, a serpent
consumption.
association. I know. They've been consumed. That's what we're saying. So they've been consumed. And she's just really having to confront the truth. And Alora, as the goddess, is the one confronting her with it and is telling it to her face. So, you know, when she's freaking out and worried, what does Alora say? She says, well, I believe that love is the most powerful force in the universe. And Kit's taken aback and is like, what do you say? And Alora repeats it with confidence because she knows who she is. She knows her role. She knows this is the truth. And she knows it's what Kit needs to hear. And so she says this because, again, they are inside of a skeleton right now. Knowledge is in the bones. She is confronting Kit with the knowledge that she has. And then she even says that. She says, we pretend we don't know, convince ourselves we don't know, but deep down, we know. And so she's telling Kit, you know you're in love with Jade. You just can't admit it to yourself yet.
She also says, I feel sorry for her for loving someone who cannot love her back. And I also think that Alora might be projecting a little bit on
She absolutely is. She absolutely is.
Okay, do you want to talk about this for a sec?
Yeah, I totally do, because this happens repeatedly throughout the episode. Every time she talks to Kit, and then you see her sort of
wait a second, I need to talk to Graydon.
Right, her gaze drifts off, and you can tell she's thinking, wait, is this true about me as well? Do I need to go talk to Graydon? Like, it happens to her multiple times. So yeah, she's totally projecting.
But she actually has the way out, which is the wand up her sleeve. And I love this so much.
Oh my gosh. Love it.
Oh my God.
I love it. She just took it. And I love that. Again, and this is how we know that she's not regressing from her progress from maiden to hero last episode. She is solidly a hero. She just does the things she needs to do and doesn't ask permission. She took the wand and now she's going to use the wand. She doesn't need
dad.
No, she doesn't. She's such a dad. No, she doesn't. She's going to do it. And she just, the first time she tries it, it works and everything. In fact, not only does it work, it like total fireworks. It just explodes. She blows it up. And I think that's just amazing. I love that also goes back to what we talked about earlier. Remember how you said that like when she burned the muffins that, one day she's going to burn something bigger. It might be more explosive, this power. And so this is, I think, as we see her affinity for fire consumption again coming out in that she just blows right out of this cage that they're in.
I do love that she can't get it to work right away. And it's not because of her lack of confidence or ability. It's that like the wand is just kind of is a little rusty.
Oh God, yeah.
Because nobody's used it, right? Like nobody's been using it. So she rubs off the tip, blows on it like an old Nintendo cartridge, and then whacks it like you do with the Nintendo cartridge. And then it works Avagadoo. And it works perfectly for her.
Yep.
Way better than it ever did for Willow.
Yeah.
Because this is her. She is magic. Really important.
But also the wand is hers. And it was always meant to be hers. I'm pretty sure that's what they told Willow back in the movie, was that it was meant to be hers.
Take this one to Finrazel, and she will take her to a good king and queen to raise her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So good memory. But like, that's the point, is that it's, it's definitely, it belongs to her. And that's obvious because of how it responds to her.
We have Borman and Scorpio round 2. They talk
I have
about
so much to say about this.
Skellen and his escape.
Oh my God. I have so much to say about this. I can't. This whole sequence. Okay. So, where should we start?
He hides in the poop and he's like, okay, once I satiated my bloodlust.
I didn't like that, but that's just because I don't know. I'm the type of person that's just like, ew. I didn't need that. But
no,
whatever.
But I mean, he's not telling the truth entirely, but we're seeing it, which is fascinating. Yeah.
Right. Well, the purpose of it is to show that he's lying.
Yeah.
And this is important because presumably this is actually why she gives out the truth poems later.
Right.
Is because he's lying to her.
Yes.
And she knows it. And so this, eventually she's got to get the truth out of him. And what's interesting about it is that the truth that she wants out of him, of course, is how he feels about her.
Yeah.
Like everything else is nice, but that's what she really is interested in.
The shower scene, which has been the most edited scene. We've heard careless whispers added to it. We've seen it turned into a Pantene commercial.
Yes.
I'm so glad they kept this in. They must have been like on a whim.
God.
And yeah.
It's amazing. It's so funny because it's like, okay, first of all, it is absolutely hot. Even though it's cheesy and silly, it is absolutely hot. I'm just like, yes, it's very nice.
My husband said he should have not been wearing pants.
Agreed, but it is still technically Disney. So, but yeah, it was great. It was so funny. A couple people also mentioned that it reminded them of Bollywood scenes that are very similar. So I loved that. I thought it was great. Obviously, it's like just super femme gaze. It just is
so great,
absolutely delightful. I'm so glad
that was for us.
That was absolutely for us. I was like, which is why I was giggling like an idiot watching it.
And as Alora escapes, it interrupts them as they were about to kiss. And she says,
"You ensorcelled me with your sarcasm and magnificent beard."
Yes.
Yes.
She was on top of him.
Yes. And like, she is into the beard. She even like when she says magnificent beard, she like
she was
grabs it and pulls on it. Yeah. And then like later when they actually do kiss, like he grabs her hand and puts it on his beard. He knows she's into it. He knows that's what she's
Do we need to talk about beards?
We do need to talk about beards.
When are we going to talk about beards?
We have to later, but yeah.
Beards?
Beards. All I'm going to say about it is this. I have been, saying for the last week or so since we saw the trailers with Graydon shaving, I was like, oh no, what's going to happen to the beard? And like, we'll talk about it later and what it means and why it's okay. But what I loved in this episode is the fact that the creators are saying directly to the audience, basically breaking the fourth wall and saying, we know you like beards. Don't worry. We're here. We'll give you beards. You're okay. And I love that. It just made me laugh so hard. It actually made me think of, if you remember the story from the behind the scenes of Tangled, where they pulled a whole bunch of women into a room and had a hot guy, and I'm making air quotes here, had a hot guy meeting where they all talk about what are the features that make a man attractive. And that's how they designed Flynn Rider. And one of the big ones was they were like facial hair, because prior to that, no Disney princess had facial hair. And he was the first one that did. And they did it specifically because all the women in this, this hot guy meeting, the infamous hot guy meeting, as they call it, said, yes, he needs facial hair. And so anyway, so beards. I like the acknowledgement that many, not all, of course, people who are attracted to masculine people find it attractive.
I have no thoughts. Just Borman's beard is actually spectacular. So
it's impressive.
Agreed.
I actually have spent more time than I should probably admit wondering what his beard care routine is. Because I'm just like, he must shampoo it because it looks really nice.
Amar, drop your beard care.
Yes, do it. Tell us. Okay, wait. Before we get past this scene, though, I do want to back up a little bit because we missed something important.
Oh, sorry. The Carcosian Death Dealers?
No, when they're talking about what happened to the other people you were traveling with, they mentioned Allagash. And I think that's the first time we've heard the name. That's going to be Christian Slater's character.
Ah, yes. Interesting. Yes. Allagash and Madmartigan are in the same sentence.
Yes.
And they are friends. I think that Borman probably betrayed Allagash at some point.
Although he talks as though Allagash is the one that betrayed him.
Yes.
Because he says he hopes that he suffered before the trolls killed him.
He seems like he shares with Scorpio what happened to Madmartigan.
It's not clear because they cut away.
Yeah.
Right before he says anything.
They kind of, like, it could go either way. He either shared or he lied, right? And then he got caught he got inscripted by the Carcosian Death Dealers. I just love that name, Carcosian.
I don't know if that even happened. I think that was more like he was saying that because it made him sound cooler, but in actuality, he was just hanging out in a brothel and then eventually got arrested by Scotia soldiers, and that was kind of it.
Obviously, boozing it up with a bunch of whatever this world's goths are.
Yeah.
Carcosian Death Dealers. Yeah. Anyways, so he got caught and he lied about how he got caught. He lied about how Sorsha, released him with his massive powers of persuasion. But she doesn't really fight him out on any of this. So he's relatively coming clean.
Mm-hmm. But like this whole sequence, I found the two of them is so horny.
I mean, metaphorically being covered in poop is because he's full of shit.
Yeah. Good point. Yep. Good point.
Okay. Are we done with this section? Do we want to go into brownies?
Let's move on.
Brownies.
Brownies. Yes.
Knock, knock, knock. This cute little brownie condo. I want it.
I do. I want
for my garden.
I've never been the type of person to want to create a fairy garden, and I might be rethinking that now.
We have Ganoush and Rule.
Gosh. Okay. So excited to see Rule again, but also Ganoush, just like love her. Love her very much.
I love her outfit because she literally reminds me of a teenager. She's got like a band t-shirt, and it looks like it's one of the designs of like Willow standing in the middle, and she's wearing a mouse onesie.
Oh my gosh. I love it so much.
Adorable. And I love how Rule's like, she's at that rude age.
She just wants to be famous. They all want to be famous. And for what? And I swear, like, man, they really came for Gen Z's throat right there. Like, oh, ouch. Like, brutal.
Decoupage.
Decoupage.
Do you know what decoupage is?
I do, yes.
Yeah. Decoupage is like creating art with like cutting out paper or pictures, and then
it's like fancy collage.
Yeah, it's you lacquer it onto things. Like, yeah. I like that she likes decoupage. It's cool.
I like it too. It's great.
I love that Madmartigan and Rule had rude daughters.
It's so great.
But it's domestic. It even has the weird yelly neighbor named Gordon.
Yeah.
And
so fun.
They catch up, and literally Graydon's like, hello, I don't know what to say in this situation.
he's just like so nervous, like standing in the back, and they're just like chatting. And I love everything about it. And he's like, okay, so need your help. Alora's here, the baby. He's like, no, she grew up. Like, it's so great.
We need your help with the death dealers. Oh, they don't listen to us.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was so funny.
It was great. Like, oh, so funny. It's really interesting too, because my teenager said that they were waiting for the brownies to show up.
Yeah.
To be okay with the show. Isn't that weird?
I mean, I get it. They were a huge part of the movie, and there's no reason that they wouldn't appear. And I even like the way that they, had kind of a little nod to the fact that it's highly unlikely that, he would run into the one brownie who was his friend back in the day. So I love, for instance, the whole exchange with Ganesh where like, he's like, well, maybe my friends.
Yeah.
Why would I know them? Because they're brownies. Do you know how offensive that is?
Yeah.
But then, of course, it actually isn't, because this is a story. And of course, he's going to run into Rule.
Of course he is.
So, it was so wonderful. But I understand why they are a huge appeal. And I know a lot of people were very excited to see them back.
And Rule asks for Shalindria's wand because they could really do something with that. And Willow's like, crap. And of course, Alora and Kit are escaping with it at that time. Mm-hmm. I love how they immediately run headlong into danger, immediately straight to Jade.
Yep. And
Kit is like, oh my gosh. Alora's like, we don't want to hurt anybody, but we will, because she really doesn't, right? Because she's the goddess of all people. Mm-hmm. But Kit's like, I will hurt you.
Yeah, I love that. And then Alora has to like correct what she said. She's like, yes, we absolutely will hurt you. She doesn't need it, even though she's trying. Yeah. She's like, if we have to.
Like losing her mind. It's so good.
It's great. She can't deal. So yeah, that's awesome. And then she, finally sees Jade, and she, like sort of fights her way toward her. And then they get caught again.
Yeah. And I love how Scorpia is like, I applaud your spirit, princess, but you really must loosen up and have some fun. And this is the start of that transformation of the Bone Reavers, because she is presenting alternatives, shape-shifting, presenting alternatives to what they thought lied with all the skulls and the bones. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But this leads to the fight with Jade as Jade escapes, and she finds the tattoo on the back of Jade's neck, which is a circle with little tiny linked rings. Mm-hmm. So cool.
I also really liked that brawl, by the way. I'm trying to think of when else I have seen like just a brawl like that between two women on screen. It doesn't happen often, so I really liked it.
Does not happen too often. No. Back to Willow and Graydon, who are still stuck in the burrow with Rule.
Yep.
And Rule hands Willow a leaf with a plan on it.
It might be nothing, but for the record, it looked like an oak leaf, and oak trees are usually considered a door to the other world.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Rule calls out our sad, angry frown prince. And now we have a name for this genre of male character.
Yes.
Including Ben Solo.
Yeah. Sad, angry frown prince. I love it. Oh, this makes me so happy.
And I have a clip of this part too.
Good.
No, you can't. You have him now. He is your new Frangine and Rule. And though he may look like a sad, angry frown prince, he has a hero's heart. Like you. To adventure is dangerous, but if you don't die, one day you may truly live.
I just absolutely love that he calls out that he has a hero's heart.
Yes.
And effectively, this is the quietest apotheosis I have ever seen.
Yeah, it's just so...
Because really all Graydon needed was somebody to tell him that he was actually valuable and had a place in the story.
Yep.
This is your rule in Frangine.
Yes.
So inside of you are two brownies.
But it's so great because and this is why I love so much what they're doing with Graydon's character, is they're taking all these things that historically have not been something that we would associate with the romantic hero. Mm-hmm. And they're saying like, no, all of these things can be true of the romantic hero. And so I really love it. I'm so pleased, and I just can't wait to see where they take the story, because I just feel like we never get a character like this in a role like this. And this show continues to give us so many things that we've always wanted but rarely gotten.
Exactly. The adventure is dangerous, but if you don't die, one day you may truly live. This was for me. Because the sacrificial death of either the hero or the redeemed villain or the sad, angry frown prince, like, this is telling us that life is possible after adventure. Mm-hmm. The journey home and the freedom to live is so important in the monomyth. And it is forgotten by those people that have adapted the hero's journey to cinema.
Yep.
Last name Vogler, first name Christopher.
Just put it out there, Marie Claire. Don't be shy.
It's been forgotten. Heroes ride off into the sunset and then don't get to rejoin the community. But that's not what Rule is saying. He's saying there's an opportunity here to live and to love and to be something else once this adventure is done.
Well, and as we have said repeatedly, even in this episode, you have to know what you're fighting for. Mm-hmm. And no one, I don't care how self-sacrificial you are. No one is doing all this fighting with the hope and expectation of dying and not getting to enjoy any of the,
fruits of, like, why are you fighting
all of that suffering? No one goes through all of that with the hope of death. And so
it's the most unrealistic part of North American cinema.
It really is. It really is. And one of the things that I really struggle with is the way that this just, especially with all of the sort of lone wolf media that is really popular right now, like obviously Mando is a great example. And then, Pedro's also doing
Last of Us,
and everything. And of course, I know everyone's really excited about the Adam Driver dinosaur movie that's coming out. And all
but it's always like a little child that he's protecting.
It is. But then here's what I'm thinking of. What I noticed on the poster for the Adam Driver movie is they're like, by the writers of A Quiet Place. And A Quiet Place is a great movie, but my issue with it is it just really, really glorifies sacrificial death especially by the masculine character. And we have that already too much in our media. And I think it's really unhealthy. I mean, I try not to say like, fiction doesn't affect reality or whatever. Like, fiction doesn't affect reality. But if it's the only story that some people ever see, then you have to start to worry, because it teaches people that they're not valuable. It teaches masculine people that they don't have value other than the ways in which, again, they can self-immolate for others. And that's really bad.
The only value in their life is their death. And that's what this media is saying. And Rule is so amazing to say there is something beyond the death that is out there.
You have a hero's heart and you may truly live.
And you may truly live.
And this is also the point at which he says, happy kissy ending.
Happy kissy ending.
Which we saw in the trailers. So all at once, it feels like...
And Graydon needed to hear all of this.
Yes.
Like, it's not Willow that needed to hear this. Graydon needed to hear it.
It's for Graydon, especially given his experience in the previous episode. So
he was willing to die. He was willing to sacrifice himself, and Alora said no.
Yes.
Kit and Alora said no. Like,
everybody, they both refused.
They refused to kill a character that could have been killed.
Yes. Yes. In most North American media, they would have killed that character. And they both said no.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Missy and I said no.
Yes, exactly. And it's very George Lucas, because that is what he was doing with his original trilogy. That's what it was about. All right, I'm okay.
I love Willow a lot.
Me too. We love it a lot.
All right.
Anyway.
Scorpia has taken Jade to her tent and she's explaining the whole situation to her. This is the mark of Kale.
Mm-hmm.
He had 15 children. Wait, General Kale? You've heard of him.
Yep.
Oh, I just fought him, actually.
Yeah.
As a ghost.
Funny you should mention. Yeah. Exactly.
In the cursed castle of Nockmar? Can you believe that?
Yep.
He was the first Bone Reaver. Okay. Wait. You guys are sisters. Oh my god. Okay. There is so much information dropped in like 2 minutes in this scene. There were slaves of Galadorn. Nockmar freed them. The Bone Reavers have taken from that and are something transformed and different from even that. Jade and the team's assumptions of what the Bone Reavers were have been completely off and wrong. Okay, where do you even want to start with this? The sister stuff, the family stuff, the Stormtrooper Rebellion stuff, which we will totally get into. Where do you want to start?
I mean, I want to push straight toward, child soldiers and children in bondage and what this means. Captured children. I want to talk about all of this because we've talked repeatedly about how the Jedi do this and it's not okay. And there's no acknowledgement in canon Star Wars that what the Jedi do, taking children, is not okay.
Yeah. And okay, so okay, wait, do you want to talk about the sister stuff second or the child soldier being one of the major sins of Star Wars?
Soldier. I think we should start there.
Okay, so there's a lot of information that's laid out, but effectively what they're saying is an aspect of the soldiers of Nockmar were liberated from being slaves, and then some of them were enslaved again through other systems that sprung up after Tirasleen and Galadorn basically taking in children and turning them into soldiers for their own needs. This is exactly what happened in Star Wars with the Jedi taking in children and then the Jedi owning the clone trooper army as generals and then those turning into the stormtroopers. And it's something that Missy and I and many other fans in the fandom wanted, which was a stormtrooper rebellion to sort of heal the sins of children being taken away from their families.
Yep.
It complicates the politics of this fairy tale to say that Nockmar had some things that are actually considered to be good about it. And
I don't know if that's what it was saying as much that Nockmar was good as much as Tirasleen and Galadorn are not all good.
What I'm saying is that war creates victimizers and victims on all sides.
Yep.
That's what I was trying to say. In that it complicates the view of Galadorn and the view of Tirasleen, and that this is a problem for Alora to solve.
Yeah. Yes. This will be, as she goes on her journey to Mother and Queen, this will be her problem to solve. You are going to have all these basically lost children.
Yeah.
You have to gather them and bring them home.
All her children.
Yep.
The entire world is hers. Like, that's important.
Yes. And it's a very Lost Boys vibe that you get. Scorpia calls them slaves of Galadorn, conscripts of Nockmar, outlaws of the Wildwood, and then refers to the reason that they are where they are without a standing army or a barrier to protect them is because they will not let their children live in fear. They will serve no master. And all they have is the fear their masks create and each other. And this is so huge.
And I just need to call out that Kale is Darth Vader of this world.
Yes.
Right? He is symbolically Darth Vader. And the Bone Reavers wearing skull-like masks is exactly like stormtroopers having a skull-like mask.
Because they create fear.
They create fear. There is a parallel here that they are comparing to Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And they are
it's purposeful.
A stormtrooper rebellion should have happened.
Yep.
What is going on, Missy?
They're giving us everything.
Have they been reading my Tumblr?
Maybe. I don't know. We all want it. This is what we deserve.
They're in your mailbox reading your mail. Let's briefly back up a little bit and talk about this sister family reveal. Okay. Again, we already talked about how Scorpia is a goddess in this episode. The thing that Jade needed to be reborn was an understanding of her shadow. What that shadow in the hallway meant. Kale being the thing that she fought, but she's fighting it because she doesn't understand it and her own history. Seeing her mother dead on the ground, you were right, Missy. In a way, you were right. The soldiers...
I mean, Sorsha was still responsible for it, even if she didn't personally do it.
Yeah, the Rangers of Tirazleen killed her mother.
Yeah.
Her father, Kit's father and mother are in the end responsible for the death of both
the loss of her family.
Jade's family. Yeah, all of Jade's family.
And then turning her against the Bone Reavers, which would have been her remaining family.
Yes, and her culture and everything like that.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Finding the connection to your mother's line is really, really important for heroines.
Yep.
Finding the knowledge of the past to contextualize and understand where you come from and what it all means. And instantly Jade's like, I know more than I did before, and this was my missing puzzle piece. And instantly everything is shapeshifted and transformed for her.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And Scorpia, I love the memory she shares about when Jade was a child. Yes. And just the fact that, she has this sort of tender recollection of a little sister, and it's very emotional. And this is so important because a reveal like that could have been just, to your point, this info dump, this big, exposition
She could have
dump.
been dealing with it for episodes.
Yeah.
Episodes.
And instead we get this, really beautiful moment, like I said, where she shares that memory. And then, of course, they follow up with they throw her a party. They celebrate her return. And that's just so beautiful.
It's like a baptism or like a new baby party. She's a reborn baby in the family.
Yes. Yay,
the return. Yeah.
Well, and it actually
prodigal Jade.
Prodigal Jade. But it actually is kind of like a baptism because, remember when she shows her the mark, she tells her, the children get this on their 100th day. Yeah. Yeah. So it's sort of, that's the mark that identifies her, and now she's home. It's really, it's just beautiful. I love it. And yes, so sisters, maternal line, the Stormtrooper Rebellion, they gave us everything, and I love them for it.
And the world is that much more beautiful and complex for it. We have Graydon and Willow escaping. We don't really see how that happens. I don't care. And Graydon's like, we have to hurry and save Alora, ... and my fiance and other people. And Willow kicks him.
Yes. But also he tells him, I need you thinking with your head, not with your ... And Graydon goes, heart. And
exactly.
I want to mention several things here. So first of all, he says heart right after Rule said that he had a hero's heart.
Yeah.
So he's
Follow
really...
your heart, Graydon.
Yes. So he's really internalized that, and now he's running with it. But also, as he says this, as he says that he's going to think with his heart, that he's thinking with his heart, that's when we hear the drum.
Yeah.
And remember what I said about the heart song and the drum, playing the heart like a drum to sing flesh back onto the bones and bring what is dead, back to life, or bring life from death. And so he's running toward where he knows Alora is, following his heart, the heart song, the beating drum, to where he knows that she is.
And Alora attack.
And she comes running out.
And she is the goddess.
She is the goddess.
She is the goddess. Yes. Okay, so she is dressed with a hair crown, right? So her hair is in a crown. She is dressed in garb that shows her to be in her element. She has a necklace, and she's not the hostess, but she is the hostess. So this is again, we talked about this being the lap of the goddess. This is her realm, even though she is not technically the owner, but instantly she takes over. I love that she hugs Willow, and she's like, Willow! and hugs him and says, and he's like, thank the mothers, you're okay.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And Graydon's just
they
like,
care about each other.
Yes.
And she's like, and she gets all cold with him, and she's like, Graydon, and he just,
Graydon?
and then he tells her, you look well. Like he wants to
wanted
tell
to
her
say
she's
beautiful.
but he chickens out. I know.
And
we
immediately run to her, like her zone, which is the kitchen or the cooking area, and she's like, dinner's almost ready. They're like, they invited you to dinner? Oh, Jade's a bone reaver? I wonder what that makes her feel. Or I wonder what that makes her conflicted, I imagine. Like, nothing. Like,
yeah.
Amazing.
But because that's because she is the goddess. She has the knowledge of all. She understands what people are going through.
Except herself.
Except herself. Everyone else, but not herself.
There is Lori, who has turned and shapeshifted, if you will, from this scary thug-like person to somebody who Alora is caring for, and he's having the soup or whatever, and he's like, I feel like it's too kumani. And you have a very well-defined palate.
Yes. And the journey applies to him as well, because him eating here, that is putting flesh onto his bones, making him more human and more alive.
Yeah.
So it works for everyone, not just the couples.
And then she takes out Shalindria's wand and points it at the soup and cooks with it, and Willow loses his mind.
Yeah, because he told her you can't make food with magic, and she keeps proving him wrong and pissing him off.
You're such a dad.
So good.
And I noticed in this scene you can actually see Graydon's flute in the back of his
it's on the back of his belt. Yeah, I love that. I'm so glad it made a reappearance, because I was actually wondering if we were going to see it again, because I like you, I ascribed a lot of significance to that the first time we saw it. So
he plays it at the party. Yeah,
he does.
So then we have kind of like the rebirth ceremony, or reintroducing Jade to the Bone Reavers as a Bone Reaver. And Kit is viewing Jade and how transformed she is. Jade actually, Scorpia has had this amazing hair this whole time, which looks like a crown. And Jade actually ends up getting like a bunch of the little like buns, I guess, in her hair.
It's the maiden version of Scorpia's Queen Dew.
Yeah, she's a princess now. She's a princess of the Bone Reavers. And she's happy and calm, exactly what you want when you are in the lap of the goddess. You have time to heal.
Yep.
Borman shows up. He also looks transformed. His hair is up in a bun.
Yes. So there's so much going on with hair, and I'm just going to cover it all at once.
Okay,
I know
great.
that we already talked a little bit. We already talked a little bit about Alora's and Jade's, but I just want to kind of cover everyone's at once so we understand what's happening here. Lots and lots of hair symbolism all at once. Borman's hair is bound. Why? Well, because as we find in a minute, he is bound to Scorpia. He calls himself her prisoner. He is tied to her. So yes, his hair is bound. Jade's hair, as we mentioned, matches Scorpia's. It's also more, even though it has the same, kind of poofs on top, it also is mostly unbound compared to how it was before. This is like Endor Leia in a way, letting your hair down. Again, as you said, she's a princess now. Alora, of course, has a crown because she is the goddess, the empress. And then Graydon shaves because he's a new baby.
He's a new baby, yeah. Okay, so that scene like messed me up. And I do want to point out that Tony did admit on Twitter today that he actually had to shave for a different role he was in a movie for while filming between episodes of Willow. But I think it actually quite fits where he's at.
It works.
He was told he has a hero's heart, and so now he's reborn as something more than a damsel. Like he's a maiden now rather than a damsel.
And I also think that you can
maybe a new hero. Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see. We have to see what happens next episode. Yeah.
I don't know if he's a hero yet. After this, he still has a conversation with Willow, which shows a level of dependence. So I don't know if he's there yet, but he's definitely not the shadow form anymore. No, he's not the damsel.
Yeah.
So he's just a maiden. But I also want to mention even though I know that there's behind the scenes reasons why he shaved, I also wondered if, in world reasoning, maybe he's still thinking of Eric. Because Eric has peach fuzz, but he's generally pretty clean shaven by comparison. So I wonder if he's still kind of thinking like, oh, this is what she likes.
I love when he's like, it's revealed he's shaved and he's like, is it good? And a man whispers, you look like a boy.
Yes. And then he's like, well, do you think she'll like it? And
like, who?
Who? Oh, just a girl.
Women like beards.
And I punched the air again because I was like, that is correct. Thank you. Well done. And listen, for those of you out there listening who beards are not your jam, obviously that's completely fine and you're totally valid. I just love it because I grew up with just all clean shaven heroes all the time, forever and ever and ever. And so finally reaching an age where like bearded men are on screen a lot more and we're acknowledging that this is something that is okay to find attractive. I'm just extremely happy about it.
I also think there's a bit of like, sometimes you make really bad decisions because of love. Sometimes you get bangs. And like,
well, see, now you're going to make the people with bangs feel bad, Marie Claire.
Well, bangs on me, okay? I'm talking about myself personally. Bangs. Every time my hairdresser's like, "Why don't I do bangs on you?" I'm like, "No."
You're like, terrible. No.
That's never going to happen. But I really love this scene because it's like, he's not sure of who he's supposed to be in this reborn state. He is baby. Like, and that literally is part of the hero's journey. When you experience apotheosis, you are reborn and you become a baby again. And you do not want to leave the lap of the goddess. You want to be near her as much as possible.
Yep.
And he keeps on like trying to figure out how to be near Alora. So it all works, even though there was like behind the scenes reasons why he shaved. It works with the story. He ends up trying to play his flute. He's like he's super awkward and amazing in this. He's like trying to figure out like, where do I stand? What do I do? I don't know what I'm doing.
But he's participating in the party and remember
having a truth plum.
Well, and he said, my nan said music is a balm for the soul. So this is him, again, that rest, that lap of the goddess. Like, how is he going to participate in that? He's going to play music because it's a balm for the soul, right? So it makes sense that he's doing that. Yes, the truth plums, I love them so much. I love specifically the fact that if you watch the way they eat them, they don't bite into them the way that you actually would.
So they're potions.
Like an oyster. And oysters
aphrodisiac.
are a known aphrodisiac. Yes, exactly. So it's like, that's what I told you. It's like, it's a love potion. And that's, so like, yes, they make you tell the truth. But the ultimate effect on all of our characters here is that it's a love potion.
Yeah. No, great.
So
amazing. I know we talked about like the Bone Reavers and the, transformation that they went through and also kind of like the reconciliation of the past conversation. But I also want to call out the values that we still fight for felt so pointed and amazing. Freedom, rebellion, passion, and joy.
Yes.
Right? Like, tattoo this on me.
Well, and do you notice that's like the best from the Sith and Jedi codes? It's like a gray Jedi like philosophy almost, because it's
freedom, rebellion against the structure, passion, and joy.
Joy.
Wait, that joy, note, anyone who's listened to What the Force for any amount of time knows that I talk about something called seeking joy. And it's literally directly from George Lucas. He talks about the difference between pleasure and joy. Passion is important. Joy is how we know that we're doing good. Joy comes from doing things for others, spending time with others, and having compassion for others. Pleasure is temporary and might feel better in the short term, but doesn't last as long. I love this so much.
Side note, everyone needs to go listen to that episode.
It's called Seek Joy.
Yes. Could you actually maybe link it because I think it's appropriate
in the liner
here.
Notes. Yeah. Like, so I talk about effectively what is the Force. It's Star Wars.
It's one of my favorites from you. I learned so much from it, and yes, it definitely I think is central to the philosophy of your entire channel. So,
But it's also central to the philosophy of Willow, too, because it's all George Lucasian.
Very. Mm-hmm.
I haven't figured out a good way to say that, but it is a thing.
George is all over this, for sure.
George is all over this.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now.
Okay, back up. Kit is playing the drinking game, which is the reference to Marion from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Loved it. Loved it very much.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's move on to Borman in the lap of the goddess with Crimson and Clover playing. He approaches. He throws his drink behind him. He's dancing through the crowd straight to Scorpia.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And they dance. Stay. Someday I'd like to. I could make you my prisoner. I already am. And then they kiss. This was so sexy.
This was the hottest thing that has happened on this show. One of the hottest things.
This episode is so horny.
It is so horny. It's the horniest episode. And I was just like, I don't know how to describe how much I was losing it at this moment. I was just like so glad I was in the privacy of my own home because I was just like,
This is why you want to come back from the adventure. This is why you want to have the freedom to live. You want to be transformed and come back to the community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the impact that this moment has on us is the same impact that it has on the other characters because Kit and Graydon are witnessing this. And this is what prompts them to go try their luck.
Unsuccessfully.
No, unsuccessfully on both counts.
Kit approaches Jade and they're having a moment. They're just vibing.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a bone reaver. And it immediately goes down to the path. I did like that Kit asked how she felt because that was really, really nice. Like that was a change. Like Kit actually caring about other people. What?
But she is trying. And you can tell that she is trying to put into effect what Alora had recommended to her earlier. Mm-hmm. She just doesn't know how. And, you know, even though she's got the truth plums and she's being honest, she doesn't really clearly understand what it is that Jade needs to hear and what she needs to do. She's still afraid. She's afraid to be vulnerable. She's afraid to, you know, talk about how she feels and talk about what she wants. And so she doesn't. And so, yeah, she blows it.
Yeah.
It goes very badly.
Instead, it brings up that she kind of was hiding her suspicions from her.
Yeah.
And we get all of this angst for just another scene.
Yeah. But Jade says, well, you are the expert on breaking my heart. And oh my gosh. Ouch. Ouch, ouch, ouch.
Graydon is off there in the woods talking to himself, playing with his own dagger.
You say that every time. Playing with his own dagger.
I'm just kidding.
Though.
I'm just kidding.
You're right. No, wait. But here's the point I want to make. What has not been visible for the entire episode and is now visible for the first time in this scene?
What?
His ring.
It's popped out. Yeah,
it did. It's been hidden
totally
inside his shirt for the entire episode. The whole time. I checked. I went back and checked. And this is the moment where it appears. The ring is out. And what I love about this so much is we love pathetic, sad. What is it? Sad frown.
Sad, angry frown prince.
We love pathetic, sad, angry frown princes and their failed proposals.
This is literally the worst. So
I love it.
I thought we were making some progress and then things happened and now you feel uncomfortable with me. I get it. He's talking to himself. He's psyching himself up to talk to Alora. She shows up. She's like, hey. And he's like,
Yeah. And she goes, oh, you shaved.
Oh, you shaved.
She's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. It was, I felt like inspired by a brownie. And, then these guys, they shaved me. I want to reassure you, what happened at Nockmar wasn't me. I saw you kill your brother.
Okay. There we go. And this is what I'm talking about. We get it out in the open. They are not coy with this episode. We have it out.
The beach episode from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Yes, everything is out in the open. Okay. Where do you start? Where do you start with this? Okay. When I kiss
your brother. Yes, there we go. That's what I was so.
I mean, pull it out of you. I told you.
She saw it as a kiss, though.
Yes, let's get to that in a second. I told you I was sick as a kid, possessed. So it wasn't you in Knockmore, or it wasn't you when you killed your brother. It wasn't me in Knockmore or when I killed my brother. Who are you? Oh, I'm still trying to figure that out. Well, let me know when you do. And then she walks away. Okay. She was so mad at him. And yeah, she was really cruel. And she does comment on that later. That's important. Yep. She recognizes that. But what is going on, Missy? Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
I think you need to go first because I'm still just freaking out a little too much.
Oh my God, it was so good. Honestly, you could miss these lines if you're on your phone. It is crazy. Okay, Graydon is her animus. I'm going to say those words out loud. I'm going to explain what they mean because not everybody's going to be familiar with Jungian archetypes. The animus for a woman is the masculine thing or part of yourself that you have projected on somebody else. And usually it's because there's something in that person that you recognize in yourself. She was attracted to Graydon in his dark form. It was very clear. Yep. Inside of Knockmar Castle with his shirt undone, with his hair in that sexy way. And then even on holding his hand as they ran down the hallway to go and rescue Willow or go and find Willow. She liked him like that. Yeah, she liked him before that because he was kind and helpful and sweet. But there was something that came out in her that she was unexpected. I call back to my video edit where it's I gave you something that you never knew you wanted. Right? There was something that came out in Graydon when he was possessed by the Lich that now she's wait a second. I was attracted to you and that wasn't you. You're denying that now. What does that mean?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's mad at her animus.
She is. She is. What does this mean about me? When she says, "Who are you?" what she means is, "Who am I?"
Because again, we talked about it before. She's projecting all over this freaking episode.
Yes. And it's so funny too, because it's hilarious the way that she is the goddess for everyone else. And then for herself.
She's a vulnerable hero.
Yes.
Yes. And Graydon's please let me just get back into your lap.
He's but I just want to be with you.
But I just want to be with you.
No.
And she's no, because you're not the guy. And I think that this is saying that and this is just speculation, I think that there is something about the possession that was Graydon. I think that they're in Knockmar. There has to be.
I agree. And this is why they wouldn't continue treating it the way they do and calling it out if that wasn't the case. At the beginning when she says, "We heal Graydon," I think, or what, mostly they make it clear that they're not really sure. They don't really know what darkness remains in him. And so
there is darkness still in him.
There is darkness. Yeah. Because they keep calling it out and because she's not certain and she's upset about it. And who are you? He doesn't know who he is yet. He's still figuring it out. No one really knows yet what the darkness is that remains in Graydon and what form it's going to take, how it's going to come out.
It'll be a surprise to us too, because there's so many possibilities, like we talked about at the top of the show. There's so many possibilities. The one thing we do know is that we've seen the shot of him holding Sherlindrio's wand. And so the question is whether that's something that is done in a darker moment for him. Yeah. We'll see. I love him so much. I cannot believe Lucasfilm gave me a dark, nerdy nerd boy. It's so great. Sad, angry, frown prince nerd. So great. Every time I see someone say, "What a nerd, I love him," I just gain so much health because I'm just yes. Yes, you nerd. Oh my God. So she leaves because she yelled at her animus. And Graydon and Willow's hanging out with the Bone Reavers. And oh my gosh. He's Graydon's "What the hell just happened?" And Willow's "Come sit with me. Sit down, have a drink. Aren't these people lovely? Not long ago, we were scared of them. Shapeshifters." Yep. And this is so important. I'm just going to reiterate what I said at the top of the hour, but this is important to show that not only people can change, and transform and go on journeys and become better people, and there's hope for everybody, but we ourselves as people can do that too. The world can change, the community can change, individuals can change. Change is possible. This is, in its very sense of a word, against the dominator culture. It is. This is a rebellious statement.
Yes.
And Willow is giving it to us.
When I finished this episode, and I know we have more to talk about, but when I finished this episode, I just thought, wow, coming on the heels of Andor, this is so fascinating because they are just, both of them, they're so countercultural. These two shows and their whole philosophy. It's really something.
It's really something glorious. And he offers Graydon a drink.
Yep.
Like the dad of his girlfriend.
Yes, it is exactly what it's like. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. Ugh, it's so great. Okay, and then Alora and Kit find
Have
one
a moment.
another.
Yeah.
Yes, and this is so important
It's
because
so good.
Yeah, they both try to confess to one another at the same time, which I think is great.
Alora is the goddess, so she has to nurture those around her. So she's actually not allowed to get advice from others in this moment. She tries.
She can't confide in Kit, which is sad, but it also makes sense.
It's also just where we're at with these. So it's like Alora says, "You're not evil." Kit says, "You're not as useless as I thought you were." And then Alora says, "I was cruel," as Kit says, "I blew it with Jade." And then they kind of like back off a little bit. And Alora's like, "Were you about to ask for my advice?"
Yep.
I'm the goddess. Okay. I'll put on my goddess hat.
I'm here for this. Yeah.
Here for this. Yep. And she eventually says, like, talk to her and apologize. Just say the words, "I'm sorry." Tell her you understand. Tell her you want to get better and that you'll be there waiting for her when she's ready for you to prove it. Okay. I have so much to say about this. And then Alora says, because she realizes she's been projecting on Kit and everybody else. She's like, "I need to go talk to Graydon."
Yes.
Okay.
My gosh.
But, okay. There's something so fundamentally important in allowing the hurt party to not have to accept your apology right away. That you're willing to go the distance. You're willing to come to the table and apologize and say you want to do better, and that you're willing to accept the consequences, that person might never want to talk to you again, but you're there to prove it and to change and to become better. This is revolutionary in our society. Kit's like, wait, I need more advice.
Yeah.
And Alora's just like, be honest with her. And Kit immediately goes to Jade and is super soft.
Oh, okay. And I know that we talked about this already, but just Ruby Cruz's performance in this scene, so good. So good. I was so emotional. It just, and I want to call it even the little things that she's doing. She's like wringing her hands together down in front of her.
And it's status, like her head is sunk, like she is in total contrition.
Yes. This moment is in our lover's journey that we talked about, our skeleton woman tale. This is the giving of the tear. And it's a gift of a tear. This is her vulnerability and her, her guilt and her desperation to be loved. All of these things, these feelings she has, she is giving them as a gift to Jade in love. She's giving it freely, to your point, not knowing if it will be returned. So what is actually Kit's love confession is such a huge and important step in this. And this is, keep in mind, what we've also seen. We've seen, the heart song and the drum, because that was what happened with the Bone Reavers. We've seen even a dance foretelling of the dance of body and soul that will come. Everyone was dancing together. And so the only dance that remains is the kiss.
Yeah.
Because that is them
the
coming together.
Yeah, coming together. Yeah.
So when Jade responds to this with, "I'm going to kiss you," that is, they're going to be able to finally come together until,
yes.
The most meta moment in the entire episode, which is saying something.
Trolls get in the way.
A troll gets in the way.
And steals
Because of
the
course they
princess
do.
away from the knight.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yep.
And they talk about wanting to come back there and everything. It's so good. All right. Do you want to briefly talk about Willow and Graydon's your good person?
Oh, yes. That's such a sweet moment. I love it.
Graydon's ring continues to be on the outside.
Yep.
It's really what we've always wanted from mentors, just to be caring and compassionate people of dark souls. Willow's like, hey, you, look at me.
Yeah.
No, you, look at me. You are a good person, Graydon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I am. I've done some bad things. Fight through the indecision of those to be bold.
Mm-hmm.
And then Willow goes on his reveal that he is actually an aging, talentless hack to both Alora and to Graydon, who have had this idea of him in their heads. And he transforms to somebody who also needs saving by them.
I love it. I love it.
And I think in Alora's journey, not only will she heal Graydon at some point again, but she will heal Willow.
Yeah, definitely. She will.
As one of her fathers in the masculine in her life.
Yeah. I loved it. I love this moment. You can absolutely see what Warwick Davis was talking about with taking TLJ Luke as inspiration, Mark Hamill's performance as inspiration for this, because you can absolutely see it. It is the questioning and the uncertainty and the belief that he will be exposed as a fraud, and that he does not feel that he is worthy of the legends that are told about him.
And that's why this show is called Willow, because he just hasn't gotten there yet. Much like Alora, much like Graydon, much like all of them, right? They are legends in the making.
Yes. Everyone is destined to be these heroes, queens. Kings. This is what they are.
King kings. Consorts of
That's
the
right.
Empress of the universe.
Right. Everyone is destined to be these things, and you can see it throughout this. It's being signaled in all of these conversations and motifs and everything.
This show, doesn't it make you happy, Missy?
It does. It fills me with joy. I love it so much.
This episode has been nothing but joy for me, and I hope that through our discussion, it showed you why it might have psychologically worked for you, why it felt good through the display and the beautiful editing and the glorious femme gaze and the amazing symbolism that was presented. Thank you very much for listening. I love the conversations that I'm getting on YouTube, on Twitter, all over the place. We're kind of going a little nuts on Twitter, actually.
Yeah, a lot of screaming.
A lot of screaming. And if you want to join in, of course, feel free. We're looking for more people to be talking about this show and joining us in the conversation. All right, Missy, where can people find you if they're looking for you and your glorious muffin recipe?
Oh, shoot. I guess that means I have to put the muffin recipe on Tumblr, because you can find me there at All Girls Are Princesses.
And we look forward to having you back next week. Also, make sure to leave a comment in our comment form in the liner notes, and feel free to comment on YouTube or on Twitter. It'll drive up conversation about this amazing show. Cheers. Thank you for listening to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host. Our music is provided by Christy Carew for What the Force. We have a Patreon at patreon.com/whattheforce. We would like to thank all our patrons, especially those who love and are obsessed with What the Force: Melody, Night Huntress, In Wild Space, How Rude, Anna Perez, Neil, Joe Allen D, Christian Luca, Josh Johnson, Scott C, and Susan. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, or leave a 5-star review on iTunes or other pod apps. It helps people find the show. Check out our other channel on YouTube, What the Fiction. You can connect with us on Twitter at WT Force Show, What the Force Podcast on Facebook, and our website, whattheforce.ca. We also have a Discord. Links are in the liner notes. Feel free to reach out and start a conversation. Cheers.